Thanks for joining everyone this morning. We're just going to give it one more minute in case other folks join, and then we'll get started. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm Sophia Lenars-Coy. I'm the Executive Director of the Food Group. We are happy and excited to gather today to really review the 2024 Minnesota Food Shelf Visit data. For those of you who have tracked this data in the past, it has historically been collected by Hunger Solutions Minnesota. The food group is thrilled and excited that Hunger Solutions Minnesota joined our organization in March of this past year, and excited to review this with you and that team as well. We also know that this data could not happen without the support and partnership of Minnesota's Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And so we are really happy to have Commissioner Tiki Brown here with us today to share some opening remarks. So I will kick it over to the commissioner.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sophia, and good to see all of you. Thank you for joining us today. So, for the fourth consecutive year, we are looking at record-breaking number of food shelf visits in Minnesota. It's clear that food shelves and hunger relief programs play a necessary role in supporting Minnesotans who are struggling, especially as the cost of living continues to rise. These numbers reflect the severity of food insecurity, as well as the growing resilience on these programs to meet basic needs. Last year, we had nearly 9 million visits that were made to food shelves in Minnesota. That is 1.3 million visits more than in 2023, and more than 2.5 times the visits we saw before the pandemic in 2019. This increase reflects a dramatic rise in the need for help, with food prices continuing to climb and SNAP benefits decreasing. Food prices have increased by 28% since 2019, making it much harder for families to afford the same groceries. On top of that, the end of pandemic-related emergency SNAP benefits in March of 2023 left some Minnesotans with $100 less per month for food. These two factors, the rising costs and the reduced benefits, contribute to the rising demand for food assistance across the state. As you all know, hunger affects both urban and rural communities. Food shelves visits increased by an average of nearly 20% across all 87 counties in Minnesota, which is really showing that food insecurity is impacting families in every corner of our state. From the Twin Cities metro to the smallest towns, Minnesotans turn to food shelves to make their ends meet. They're no longer just an emergency safety net. They've really become a critical resource for 1 in 5 Minnesotans. So food shelves are serving working families, they're serving children, they're serving seniors, and they're playing a crucial role in helping families navigate this difficult time. What used to be a temporary stopgap for families and for those facing crisis is now an ongoing resource need for many families struggling to put food on the table. Despite all of this increasing need, food shelves across Minnesota continue to do just incredible work. There are 487 food shelves, mobile, and tribal programs participating in the emergency food program throughout our state. And these programs have been expanding their services to meet the growing demand. These organizations are helping families navigate an incredibly challenging time, and we really owe them our gratitude. So as we look at these numbers and the growing need for food assistance, it's important to remember that these visits to food shelves are more than just statistics. They are a direct response to the challenges that many families are facing. Each visit represents a family in need, a child or senior being fed, or a parent struggling to make ends meet. It's so important to continue to support food shelves and hunger relief programs in every way that we can. These programs play an essential role in making sure that no Minnesotan goes hungry, and we must continue to build on their success. Together, I know we can work to ensure that all families in Minnesota have the resources that they need to thrive. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I wanted to just share a little bit about the food group, and then we can go deeper into the data that Commissioner outlined for us, and talk a little bit more about what we're seeing in terms of trends. So first, a little bit about the food group. We are a nonprofit organization based in the metro, but with a statewide impact. We really do our work in four main areas. We have our anti-hunger work, where we support food shelves throughout the state. We have sustainable farming, where we help folks get access to land and capital and the training they need to start sustainable farm businesses. We have affordable grocery programs, knowing that we believe every neighborhood deserves access to high quality, affordable foods. And then we have our advocacy work. And as I mentioned, we are proud that Hunger Solutions became part of the food group in 2024. So then to get into the data that Commissioner Brown previewed for us, in 2024, Minnesotans made 8.9 million visits to food shelves, so almost hitting that 9 million mark. As you can see from the graph, this continues the trend line of market increases year over year. It is slightly less of a percent increase than we saw in 2022 and 2023. So a little bit lessening of that pressure, but obviously still dramatically more than you can see food shelves were serving at the beginning in 2019 pre-pandemic. So again, what we're seeing and hearing from so many food shelves in every corner of the state lines up with these broader trends, which is just really pushing capacity, new people coming who haven't come before, right? People coming more frequently, just so many pressures on families, which really are creating this dramatic rise in visits that continues. So to get a little deeper into the data, I'm going to turn it over to our statewide food access manager, Jill Westfall. She will break down the data a little bit more, and then after she does that, both Jill and I will be available for questions, and we can talk more. So I'll turn it over to you, Jill.
Great, thanks, Sophia. I'm going to walk us through some of the data so that we have a better understanding of what is happening in terms of food shelf visits across the state of Minnesota. So first of all, the food shelves across the state, there are 487 of them. These are food shelves, mobile programs, and tribal programs that contribute visit stats to this grand total. And they all participate in the TEFAP program, the Emergency Food Assistance Program. And you can see from the map that they represent all corners of the state of Minnesota. So what's happening? Who's visiting food shelves? We've seen an increase across all demographic types from 2023 to 2024. You can see the number of kids and adults is rising a little faster than the total number of seniors, but we are seeing increases in all three age categories. And overall, children and seniors make up 47% of food shelf visitors, and adults make up that other 53%. So that's pretty consistent year to year in terms of the percentage of each demographic group making visits to food shelves and utilizing that resource. Food shelf visits have risen statewide. You can see it's pretty consistent throughout the state. A little bit of an increase, a little faster increase happening in southern Minnesota, as you can see, and then along kind of the western edge of the state. But generally speaking, food shelf visits are up in most counties. We saw an increase of 18.4% on average in counties here in Minnesota. And that can range a bit. You can see places like Nobles County down in the southwest corner of the state had an almost 200% rise in food shelf visits. And that actually is attributable to an additional food shelf that was not participating in 2023 and is now contributing those stats. So some of the changes are really in terms of programmatic changes and aren't really driven as much by need or shifting areas of need throughout the state, but are really driven by that response to the need that is already in those communities. And so we see that in places like Nobles County with an additional food shelf, adding more visit stats to their total. And that data is all available. There is a map with the 2023, 2024 county level data, as well as those percent changes for each of the demographic groups that is available. So if you're looking for local information, we have that and are happy to share that link with you all. So what's driving all of this need and the increase in food shelf visits? One of the biggest factors we're seeing and hearing from food shelf participants is that the rise in the price of groceries has really had a huge impact in terms of folks needing to turn to food shelves to help supplement their family grocery budget. So from December 2019, so just pre-pandemic, if you purchased $100 worth of groceries, going to the grocery store at the last year in December 2024, it would cost you $28 more to buy those same groceries. And that is a cumulative effect. Most households aren't buying just $100 a month. They're doing it every week. And so you see that $28, add up over time. We saw an increase in food shelf or in grocery prices really accelerate through 2021 and 2022. And that increase has leveled off a little bit through 2024, but we are seeing a slight trend toward increased prices again at the end of 2024 and early 2025. So we're just seeing this trend where food prices, the price for groceries at home has definitely increased for Minnesota households. And the other factor that we hear that is driving some visits to food shelves is the loss of pandemic era SNAP benefit. During the pandemic, SNAP households were receiving additional SNAP benefits, and those benefits ended in March of 2023. And that the loss of those benefits translates to about $100 difference per person per month in monthly SNAP benefits going out to households. And so households are trying to kind of make up that gap that they have suddenly experienced. It happened in early 2023. So you're losing $100 in early 2023 while the price of groceries has risen 25%, and more families are finding that they're just not making it to the end of the month and need some additional assistance. So they're turning to food shelves to get that bit of extra help. In addition to those high food costs and the impact of the loss of SNAP benefits and other COVID era programs, there's a rise in prices kind of across categories for folks. The statewide food shelf shopper survey in 2022 asked food shelf shoppers if they've had to make any sort of trade-offs between paying for food and other expenses. And so we're seeing 38% of households are saying they've had to make a choice between paying for food and paying for utilities. About a quarter have had to pick and choose between transportation and housing. 20% have had to make trade-offs between paying for food and paying for medical expenses. And so we're seeing households that are utilizing food shelves and getting some additional assistance, really having to make some tough choices in how they pay for all their basic needs, especially while prices are increasing. And that's a quick walkthrough of the food shelf stats. I'm going to hand it back to Sophia to talk a little bit about what is coming next and what we anticipate in the coming year.
Yes, thanks, Jill. And again, we're happy to take questions about any of the data. And as Jill mentioned, what's great about the data is it can really be sliced and diced locally or regionally. And we're happy to connect folks with other food shelves doing on the ground work too. I know we have a couple on this call, but many others who can kind of share the stories of personalizing the data and talking about what that's looking like in specific areas. But the thing we just wanted to mention at the end is, again, we were pleased to see that the rate of increase of food shelf visits in Minnesota was not quite as high this year as it had been year over year the last couple. And just to kind of contextualize that, while Jill did a great job kind of contextualizing the factors that are still driving people to need food shelves, I think it's safe to say that policy wins that Minnesota has had, like universal school meals, like the child income tax credit, those things are reducing this pace of growth. But I think we're certainly, uncertain. We are certainly uncertain about what is coming next. And I think, many of you may have seen the House budget bill that passed last night. Major cuts to the ag budget are targeted, $230 billion, with lots of talk about cutting the SNAP program. So just to kind of briefly contextualize how the SNAP program at the federal level kind of interacts with our local hunger relief system in Minnesota, for every one meal that is distributed incredibly well by these amazing 487 food shelves, SNAP provides 9 meals to low-income Minnesotans. So the federal safety net, right, is such a dramatic piece of this puzzle. And if those $230 billion in cuts went through, that would look like in Minnesota about $2.1 billion in SNAP cuts over the next 9 years, just in our state. So, a potential of almost $230 million a year. So kind of looking at that as a piece that would obviously dramatically change the demand for food shelves that are already well beyond the capacity that many of them were, sort of designed to meet. So wanting to just kind of put that out there, we are certainly doing everything we can to tell the story. And obviously none of those cuts have happened yet, but it's certainly concerning as we look ahead. So with that, we will open it up to any questions that people have. Okay, we've got a question in the chat. Are there examples of specific types of foods that people are not able to get, either because of the federal funding freeze, or other challenges? Yes. So I think that the thing that we are hearing broadly from food shelf partners is that the LFPA program, the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program, had a lot of grants that were connecting food shelves to local farmers. That is currently frozen at the federal level. So that is yet another pressure on kind of food shelf food budgets. And again, really difficult because that was funding that was committed and people were already in the planning processes of using that. And it's just unclear whether that will get unfrozen or come back or not. So I would say that's the specific way that the federal funding freeze is impacting food shelves. And certainly kind of, the other more broad issue that we're hearing is, avian flu is obviously changing egg prices dramatically. Anyone who's bought eggs recently knows that. But eggs are really, they're a staple protein in food shelves in the hunger relief space too. So I know for food banks, for food shelves, egg sourcing has also been challenging right now. Are there other questions? People can feel free to unmute or pop a question in the chat. Yeah, so here's a question for any food shelves who are on the call. Michelle or Maureen, are either of you up for sharing a little bit about what you're seeing locally?
Sure, I'm happy to share. Hi, my name is Michelle Ness. I'm the executive director of Prism. We're a nonprofit in Golden Valley, and we operate a busy food shelf. We're just seeing a great increase in the number of first-time food shelf users. We're having about 2,000 visits a month. So people are coming in, and as the slides really nicely showed, cost of living is just high. The increased cost for food, for health insurance, we see our energy bills going up. Folks are struggling to make ends meet. We have a ton of people who are working and simply don't have the resources to be able to get through. So coming and visiting us means they've got a cartload of groceries and that frees up their budget and they can focus on some of those other expenses that they have in their life. But I think childcare, I think medical, transportation, uh, all of the fees and all of the costs that we have as individuals, so do folks who are earning really basic wages, along with folks who are on disability. Most majority of the people I'd say have someone in their household with some sort of disability, whether diagnosed or not. And so these can create some additional challenges, costs, and burdens. So it's the same as the rest of us when we go, man, my budget is feeling tighter than it used to be. Wages simply have not kept up with the cost of living. And so people are trusting food shelves. They're finding that they get treated in a respectful, dignified way. They're getting connected with other resources. It's helpful. We had almost 26,000 visits last year alone. We're in Golden Valley. People from over 100 different cities in Minnesota have come to visit us. So the need is very real, and our challenge is being able to have enough quality food for 2,000 visits a month. So a lot of folks that are coming through our door.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And I think as you can see from, that picture of Prism in Golden Valley and a story that's could be told almost probably 487 times in a different way, food shelves in Minnesota, like they are amazingly great at what they do. So when we look at all the innovations that have happened since COVID, everything that they've done to expand services, to do good community outreach, to get foods that are more reflective of what communities are asking for, all of those amazing kind of programmatic innovations to respond to community need have meant that more and more people see this as a really great resource, which is exactly what we all want. And for that resource to be sustainable, it requires, countless local volunteers, local donors, right? Continued state support, right? The federal safety net. It really is a patchwork of resources that allow our food shelves to do the amazing kind of frontline work that they need to do.
And in order for us to be able to respond to this high level of need, this is more than donations from a food drive. We need to be able to procure food from food banks, like the food group and Second Harvest. We have to be able to purchase that additional food. So to be clear, this is not, local communities doing a food drive and that's what's stocking the shelves. With the number of people coming through, it is far more robust than that.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Any uh, questions that folks have on the chat?
This is Jesse with the Star Trip. One more question for you. Could you just tell me a little bit about what you would like to see from legislators this session, what you're talking about them, and talking with the governor about on this?
Yeah. So what's great is, the governor and so many legislators do understand the important role that food shelves play in their local communities. And there has been a, significant investment from the state these past several years to, continue to bolster this system, which we're incredibly grateful for. We do have a bill that we are championing along with our Partners to End Hunger Coalition this legislative session to take some of the one-time funding that was put into supporting food shelves and make that consistent and sustainable. Because as you can see from these numbers and from what Michelle was sharing about PRISM, now is not the time for food shelves to experience any cut in resources. So we are working hard to try to maintain the funding levels from the state that food shelves has seen these past several years at the legislature. And then Partners to End Hunger, our coalition, along with several of our national coalitions that we're a part of, are really doing everything we can to talk about the important role that SNAP plays. Because again, protecting and maintaining that important federal safety net resource is critical to maintaining the capacity and solvency of our local food shelf network. And then Rachel from the food group did put our press release in the chat. We'll have this recording available, but we are happy to connect individually with anyone as well, either to talk more about a way to localize the story or to go in depth on anything that we didn't cover. So thank you all so much for taking time this morning. And Michelle, thank you for taking time out of your busy work to participate too. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.